When you wake up tomorrow morning and check your bank balance, that number on your screen will mean less than it did today. Not because you spent money, but because the dollar itself is quietly bleeding value while you sleep. And this isn't some distant economic theory or doomsday prediction. This is happening right now in real time. And the signs are everywhere if you know where to look. Most Americans trust their currency the way they trust the sunrise. It's always been there, it always will be, and questioning it feels almost unpatriotic. But empires don't announce their currency collapses with press conferences and warning labels. They happen slowly, then suddenly, and by the time ordinary people realize what's happening, their savings have already evaporated. Here's what should terrify you. The United States dollar has been the world's reserve currency for over 70 years. Every major trade deal, every barrel of oil, every international transaction has been settled in dollars. This gave America a superpower no empire in history ever possessed, the ability to print money and have the entire world accept it as payment. But that monopoly is cracking, and when it breaks, the consequences will reshape everything you think you know about money, wealth, and economic security. The first crack appeared not in some economic textbook, but in the real world, with real consequences that are already hitting your wallet. In 2022, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in decades, central banks around the world became net sellers of US Treasury bonds. Think about that. These are the institutions that have been America's most reliable customers. They started walking away. China, Russia, Japan, and dozens of smaller nations began quietly reducing their dollar reserves and diversifying into other currencies, gold, and commodities. But the warning signs go deeper than central bank behavior. They show up in the grocery store, at the gas pump, and in your monthly bills. Since 2020, the Federal Reserve has created more new dollars than existed in the entire US money supply before. 1,980 we printed in 4 years what took 2 centuries to create, and every single one of those new dollars dilutes the value of the ones already in your pocket. This isn't complicated economics, it's simple math. When you flood the market with anything, its value drops. When governments flood their economies with newly printed money, the result is always the same: inflation, loss of purchasing power, and the slow strangulation of everyone who depends on wages and savings denominated in that currency. The most dangerous part is that this process is designed to be invisible. Inflation doesn't arrive like a natural disaster with sirens and evacuation orders. It creeps in through higher rent, more expensive groceries, and insurance premiums that somehow keep climbing even when nothing catastrophic happens. Your salary might even increase, giving you the illusion that you're keeping up, while the real purchasing power of every dollar you earn steadily erodes. Meanwhile, the people who understand this game are already positioning themselves for what comes next. They're converting dollars into assets that can't be printed: real estate, commodities, foreign currencies, and yes, even cryptocurrencies and precious metals. They know that when confidence in a currency begins to crack, the smart money doesn't wait for official confirmation. It moves first, quietly, before the crowd realizes what's happening. But understanding the death of the dollar requires understanding how it became so powerful in the first place. In 1944 at Bretton Woods, the dollar became the world's central bank. We could run trade deficits, finance wars, and spend beyond our means because the world needed our dollars. But in 1971, President Nixon shattered this foundation. He severed the link between the dollar and gold, making the dollar a purely fiat currency backed by nothing more than trust in the US government. What followed was the petrodollar system, forcing every nation that needed energy to first acquire dollars. For 50 years, this arrangement has been the invisible foundation of American economic power. Yet the ultimate free lunch is ending. Saudi Arabia has begun accepting Chinese yuan for oil sales. Russia has completely abandoned dollar transactions. Brazil and Argentina are trading in their own currencies. Even longtime allies are quietly reducing their dependence on dollar-denominated transactions. These aren't random policy changes. They represent a coordinated effort by much of the world to create alternatives to the dollar-dominated financial system. China is building its own international payment system. Russia and India are trading energy in rubles and rupees. The world is quietly building the infrastructure to function without the dollar, and once that infrastructure is complete, the network effects that have made the dollar indispensable will work in reverse, accelerating its decline. The consequences of this shift will be profound and personal. When the dollar loses its reserve currency status, America will lose the ability to finance its spending by printing money that other countries are forced to accept. Interest rates will have to rise, the cost of imports will skyrocket, and the standard of living that Americans have enjoyed for decades will come under severe pressure. The process has already begun, and it's accelerating. The question isn't whether the dollar's dominance will end, but how quickly it will happen and what that means for anyone who holds wealth in dollars. The smart money isn't waiting to find out. In March 2023, the central banks of China and Brazil announced a direct currency swap agreement, allowing them to trade billions of dollars worth of goods without touching a single US dollar. Similar agreements sprouted between dozens of other nations that collectively represent more than half the world's population. Strip away the diplomatic language, and what you're witnessing is the construction of a parallel financial system designed to function without American currency. Meanwhile, back home, the Federal Reserve continues to play the same game that has destroyed every fiat currency in history. Every crisis is met with the same response: create more currency and hope the problem disappears. But every dollar created today makes every existing dollar worth less tomorrow. It's the difference between money which holds value and currency which is just paper backed by promises. The erosion is already visible. A house that costs $50,000 in 1970 now costs 10 times that amount. Healthcare, food, energy, everything measured in dollars has become more expensive. Not because these things became more valuable, but because the measuring stick itself has been stretched thin. This is the hidden tax that no politician campaigns on. It's the systematic transfer of wealth from savers to debtors. What makes this moment different is the sheer scale of the bubble. The dollar is woven into the fabric of global commerce in ways that no currency in history has ever been. Its collapse won't be contained to one nation. It will be a planetary financial earthquake. The process feeds on itself. As more countries abandon dollar transactions, demand for dollars falls. As demand falls, the Federal Reserve must either allow interest rates to rise dramatically, crashing the economy, or continue printing money, accelerating inflation. It's a trap with no clean exit. Foreign creditors understand this dynamic better than most Americans do. They've been quietly reducing their exposure to dollar-denominated assets. China is converting dollars into gold. Russia has built trade relationships that bypass Western financial systems. Even allies like Japan and Germany have been diversifying their reserves. The tragedy is that this crisis was entirely predictable and completely avoidable. Every empire that has debased its currency has followed the same path: initial prosperity from easy money, followed by inflation, loss of confidence, and eventual collapse. The patterns are clear, the lessons are obvious, but the temptation to print money and delay consequences is irresistible. The question facing every American is simple but urgent. Will you be among the prepared or the unprepared when the music stops playing? Because it will stop. History guarantees it. The only uncertainty is timing, and the clock is ticking faster than most people realize. The destruction of the dollar isn't a distant threat. It's today's reality, unfolding in real time while most Americans sleep through the warning signs. The people who survive currency collapses aren't the ones who trusted most in the system. They're the ones who recognized the illusion before it shattered. They held assets that couldn't be inflated away, skills that retained value when money failed, and the wisdom to know that governments always choose printing over accountability. The dollar's slow death has begun, not with fanfare or official announcements, but with the quiet exodus of nations seeking alternatives and the relentless expansion of money supply that has destroyed every fiat currency before it. The choice is yours. You can trust that somehow America will be different, or you can prepare for what's coming. Protect what you've built, and position yourself to thrive when the system finally admits what the evidence already shows. The smart money isn't waiting for confirmation, neither should you. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening, hit subscribe. The warning signs are everywhere if you know where to look.